Hello. Normal service has been interrupted slightly, but I'm going to try and make this presentation as helpful as possible, educational as possible. Right, the opening clip here is of an interchange between Mystic and Steve-O. Now, it wasn't the start, it was into a bit more, and it was following on from other comments, where I'm getting a bit annoyed with Steve-O. Because I don't have time to play too many games in the comment section. I'll tell you what happened in the night as well, which I found. Steve-O was talking to Richard, and Richard was saying, well, look, Steve-O, you've got a thing about gold. And Steve-O said, it's not so much that, and explained it by this way, which I found quite insulting. Talking about me, that I'm coming up with these ideas about printing money because I am invested in gold. And that didn't seem quite right to Steve-O. That set off alarm bells. And I can understand that. If you really think that my presentations are going to affect macro policy and I'm going to cause or help cause a mass of money printing, which is going to cause a massive inflation, which is going to cause a massive rush up in the price of gold, and I am going to make out like a cowboy. Now, if anybody could possibly think that I'm doing these presentations to have a small impact on the macro policy so I can get money printing done, so I can get a bit of boost from it selfishly because I hold gold, and I do all this for that, right, okay, that was in the night. And we'd already had an interchange where I got sick of playing games, and we had a bit of game playing before this comment. So I know this has started very badly, and it sounds like me just getting the advantage of having the front page and doing a presentation in an argument. Hopefully, by the end of this, it won't be so petty sounding. So I'm sorry for that start, but it's going to continue with a bit of pettiness all the way through. Okay. And it's not just Steve-O, obviously. There are other people that play games as well, and I don't have time for it. I really don't. Okay, and the classic game that gets played is to quote something or someone to say this is what they have said, when really it's really quite clear that they haven't said it. But then what does the person do, like me, if I'm being told that somebody said this? And this is kind of where we get to at the start of this. And can you already feel your own thoughts coming? Oh, good, an argument. Let's decide who's right and who's wrong. People adore this. And it is normally not in the slightest bit useful. Okay. So I kick off with, I'm not going to check, but I doubt 6B suggests that suggests the money supply be expanded through private corporations. And knowing that we're already in this dodgy area, I said, but please don't rush to look so you can get a little buzz from proving me wrong. Because then we just get involved in, well, he did say that. No, he didn't say that, but he could have meant this. And it just goes nowhere and does nobody any good. Okay. So I go more into the meat of things. And I have to be really careful when talking to somebody like Steve-O and a couple of other people. And if you notice in the comment section generally that I don't reply to you, it's because I know I'll get involved in these sort of pettinesses, which I do not have time for. One line runs thus, which I've got to actually think now, what do I write here? MMT says this, and I know I can't say that to somebody like Steve-O because he'll go, MMT says that. So I've got to say something like, one line of thought runs thus. All right? Can you see the care I have to write to somebody who's got a snickety little pettiness? One line of thought runs thus. Corporations are awash in cash. And I was reading, if this wasn't interrupted, I was going to tell you all about that corporate cash between 3 and 5 trillion in the world, and how it is causing to the short end of quite a lot of sovereign bond curves to be depressed. But you're not going to get to hear that. You probably wouldn't want it anyway. It was a bit technical. Corporations are awash in cash, but aren't spending it because the economy is crap. Yeah? All these corporations, I think they've got a lot of debt on the other side of quite a lot of this cash they've got, but they have got a lot of cash. And everyone can see it. They had it in the 1920s, and I believe, okay, you can check it if you like, people. I believe in the 30s, it will have been into the 30s then, the government passed a thing taxing at a huge rate. I'll make a number up, but I think it was up around 80% annually, any cash that a company had at the end of the year. If it was holding cash, they taxed it at about 80%. Go and check. But it's something like that. And that's the sort of thing they're thinking about now, even all governments, because they see the cash is there. But of course the corporations or businesses are not going to spend it into a crap economy. It's foolish to do so. And technically they wouldn't be allowed to do it because they have got to maximise their shareholders' performance. And that certainly wouldn't flow through court, just spending money into a crap economy. Anyway, the idea. And you see how I've had to float this as just an idea. Get the government to do some projects, and I'm trying to keep it as airy-fairy as possible, so I'm not got. Some projects employ people, thereby making the world a nicer place and make the economy that much less crap. Then corporations might spend their cash, and voila, then everything gets going again. That's one line of thought that runs that way. Okay. But I'll try to throw what is the big dichotomy here. Lurking in the background are people sitting at home when they want to be working at something. And that's the fact of the matter. It's bad for them, it's bad for the economy, it's bad for everyone to have people rotting, it's a bit over the top, but rotting at home because they become more and more bleh. And it's very hard then to get back into the economy again. You lose skills and all that sort of stuff. It's bad for everyone. Right. And corporations, again, are not going to employ them while the economy is crap. So who? The question goes, can decrap the economy? And that's what the whole thing is. And obviously it can only be the government. And how can they do it? Then we have to discuss how they might be able to do it. And I think that's what I've been discussing. Right. How much time have we got? Okay, plenty. Sorry this might go on, but we'll get some charts in the end. So Steve-O comes back with, and I know to pick on one comment is cruelly naughty of me. So I put my hand up and say, sorry to Steve-O, sorry to everybody who thinks this is stupid. I know people just make comments and it's quick and it's not meant to be serious or got and absolutely not torn apart, analysed by me in a video. It's cruel and unfair by me. I know it. I'm sorry. But I get this back. You mean to give the unemployed purchasing power? Now, so I go, what? You mean to give the unemployed purchasing power? When I was just talking about get the government to do some projects, employ people, thereby making the world a nicer place. You mean to give the unemployed purchasing power? No, the idea is to give the unemployed jobs and thereby purchasing power. Okay. Is that so bad? Okay, let's go on and see if it is or not. That purchasing power will just end up in inflated prices for basic items. Now, I can understand what Steve-O would be saying from, let's say, an Austrian point of view, if we gave lots of money to unemployed people. But if we're going to give, not lots of money, gave them money to unemployed people, like happening now, it's so difficult, I don't want to be got again, it's pathetic. Okay, that purchasing power will just end up in inflated prices for basic items. So if you've got like, let's say, 5 years ago, 2007, things were going well, people were working, people were getting paid, that purchasing power will just end up in inflated prices for basic items. Well, we're stuffed then, aren't we? If we have a good economy and everyone's, as I said, there'll always be a churn of 3 or 4%. But if we're at that bottom line of 3 or 4% churn and everybody else is employed, then we're going to have purchasing power just ending up inflating prices for basic items. Well, we're going to have a big discussion about that, aren't we? People will just be paying more for property, oil, clothing and food. If that's the price, if the I don't understand. I'll go on. Clothing and food. They will not have the money to spend on goods and services produced by an expanded workforce. They will not have the money to spend on goods and services produced by an expanded workforce. So we've got the expanded workforce, we've got more people working, and there is a they there that will not have the money to spend on goods and services. And I'm a bit of a loss there. I'm not knocking it, I'm just not understanding it. The existing corporations are not going to hold their prices just to fit in with the theory. Now, presumably that means they're going to put the prices up. But from the last sentence, it could be that they're going to put the prices down because they will not have the money to spend on goods and services produced by the expanded workforce. If they haven't got the money to pay the expanded prices, then the corporations are not going to hold the prices just to fit the theory. They're going to put the prices down. This next 2 words, or whatever you want to call it, is the reason that I went to make this video. It got me. I just sat there and went, MMT assumes. Now, what am I meant to do with that sort of comment? MMT assumes. MMT assumes. Now, I've gone into the last 3 days explaining that I've explained it over the last 2 or 3 days, and how now the modern MMT people are discussing among themselves how best to use the extra Ferrari power. But MMT assumes. MMT, if you don't know it by now, you just never know it, eh? MMT assumes. The additional money is automatically spent on additional goods and services. So we're, and this, in my opinion, is an inaccurate understanding of demand and supply forces. So presumably the implication is that the additional money won't be spent on additional goods. And am I meant to do something with a comment like this? Yes, make a presentation video that's got some charts in it. Right. Yeah, I've been going on a bit, but okay. I've gone to America because it's where the best information is, and St. Louis Fed, Consumer Price Index, all urban consumers, all items, and this is the most, I think on the way through, I saw it's the most used, got series out from Fred. More people use this one than any one of their entire series, and there are thousands. And it's a Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers. You can split that up, and it's for all items as well. This is why people use it. It's the widest one. This is an index 82. 1982 was leveled at 100, so it's tied at 100. And don't worry, it goes up the way. I can't explain it. Sorry, I can't explain it. And we can see it was flattish up till 1971, about the summer. And then it goes off, zooming up. Okay, classic sort of thing. Now, down at the bottom left, I've highlighted in yellow, edit graph. You can do all this yourself. Follow the link, go to Fred, any of these, and you can go edit graph. Right. And then go through the edit graph stuff, and you can change parameters. And the parameters I've changed for this is still Consumer Price Index, all urban consumers, all items. So it's the same as the one that went ooh whoosh. Okay, same as that one, but I've changed it now to percentage change from a year ago, which is the way that consumer price inflation is kind of, that's how they call it, measured. All increases that year have to stack on all the other increases from the previous years. But that's what people go for, like, that's what they go for. And you can see it was wild in the earlier days, and it ramped right up to that 1980 sort of mark, where Volcker came in and there was a great panic, right? And then they did things to get it down again. Basically, you can see that's the shape of it. Now, a couple of the things they did was to try and crush the unions. There would have been a big board table up in Washington, and they were said, look, it's when there is high employment, the people can demand higher wages, and with those higher wages, they can buy more goods and services. It's not so much full employment means more money, means higher, it's that. They decided that it was the wages going up that was causing all the price inflation problems. So they decided to crush the unions, and where possible maintain a buffer stock of unemployment large enough to keep wage demands low. Now, that was done in the 80s, just about, I'll say across the Western world. Right. And this is the final one, isn't it? Yeah. No, second to last one. What I've done is take the last 30 years. It's just coming down from the 80 heights, and it comes down and touches 2.5 in 1983 for the first time. And basically there are a couple of occasions where it's too high, a couple of occasions where it's too low. This is according to the Fed. 2 to 3% inflation is what they are programmed to do, and it went well low in this Great Recession. But basically the consumer price index for all urban consumers, all items, has been 2.5% for the last 30 years. Now, what I'm going to ask you, because you'll have all sorts about this. Now, there's nothing I can do about you telling me that they have been manipulating these data for the last 30 years. There's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is say, if I can help you do a Fred chart with whatever you want me to overlay that chart with, I can help you do it. Now, the first one that came to mind to be helpful, because I know a lot of people go on about it and used to go on about it more, but obviously it's the discontinued one, the M3. So it's the same blue line, which is the consumer price index, all urban consumers, all items, wobbling around that 2.5 mark for the last 30 years. And the red one is the M3. As you can see, sometimes in the early 90s, it was down to 0. Sometimes in around 2001, it was 12.5% a year. But it doesn't seem to affect the consumer price index for all urban consumers, all items very much. It wobbles around all over the place, but the CPI does not. If you can think of other things you would like me to overlay on there, write in comments and I'll try and do it. See if we can find there's a lot of concern about money and inflation. So let's see if we can find some sort of correlation, if nothing else, something that we can pencil in and talk about as causing inflation. So that's the M3. Any others that you can think of, there we go. So I'll finish with an apology to Steve-O if he thinks he's been dunged by this presentation. That's not the intention. It's just an overall educational thing to say, I don't have time to play games. I'm not here to get the governments of the world to increase the money supply so the price of my gold goes up. I think if I'm doing anything, I'm trying to be helpful, and I can do it best the way I do it. And that's probably where I should leave it. Thanks. Bye.